Hey, welcome back. We are ready for another great lecture, and with me right now is Mark Mangieri. He is the Vice President of Sales and Brand Development for Hemp Synergistics. And I'm very excited because, Mark, you have an entire list of just excellent information that you're going to share with us today. So I'm just going to step down in the corner and hang tight with you and let you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do and who you are.
Sure. And thank you. I always enjoy our talks. My name is Mark Mangieri, like you said, VP of Sales and Brand Development, but essentially I'm a product developer, and that's what I've been for a long time. I went to Penn State, agriculture and food science. I had never been on a farm before I started college, and it was a twisted path to get to agriculture, but I really enjoyed it, learned a lot, understood how our food is cultivated. And as I pull years past, decades past from my time at Penn State, I realized that the mentality of the food producers doesn't align with a lot of the things that we preach on a day-to-day basis. And through the talk, I'll have the opportunity to insert some of that stuff, things that I may have seen at Penn State, and how they don't fall in line with things that we need to do for ourselves. I actually got hired into this industry in 97 or 98 by your co-founder and president, Jamie Dorley. We worked together for several years, and that's where my product development started. I did a lot of work for bodybuilding.com and a lot of other smaller brands. Some of them grew and are still around today. I had the opportunity to start my own brand back in 2005, made it to all the shelves of GNC, Vitamin Shop. And then 2015, I moved over to functional foods, which I felt was the sort of the evolution, kind of a reintroduction of foods the way they should be, just manufactured that way instead of grown that way, unfortunately. And the thing that I was thinking about this morning was I had the opportunity to see or have my hands on hundreds of millions of dollars in sales over the years. And I have a behind the scenes look of what I saw work, what doesn't work. A common mistake a lot of product developers do is they over-engineer a product. It's too much, it makes it too expensive. So not only do you have to have good science in a product, you also have to have a smart construction of that product. You can't make a product that's going to cost over $100 and expect it to be a monthly purchase. And the hemp and CBD industry really interested me because, it was only recently decriminalized, 2018 technically. And when I saw the pricing that some of these products were listed at, I felt as though there was a disconnect between the science, the dosing, and the branding. And in essence, I'm a liaison between the hardcore scientist and the end user. So I put together products that uses the science, but also takes into a deep consideration the end user's needs and wants. And I've been here for a little better than a year, and there were a lot of challenges, and I believe we solved a lot of them, and that's kind of what we're going to get into and talk about. But I do want to start with the history of hemp and cannabinoids. Up until 1938, hemp was completely legal. Marijuana was too, but if you look at a map and just zoom in on any one area, you're going to find a town with the name Hemp in it. And that's because it was one of the most common crops grown. It's extremely versatile. It can be used in textiles. They used it in plastic. Henry Ford used it as a prototype of one of his cars. You could search a video of him smacking a fender with a baseball bat and showing how strong it is. But it also was in our food source. jumping ahead a little bit, the hemp feeds something called the endocannabinoid system. The endocannabinoid system was only recently discovered in the early 90s. So why would we have this system in our body that basically since the criminalization of hemp hasn't really been fed properly? Of course, there are other ways to feed your endocannabinoid system. Basically, any foods that are high in omega-3s and some omega-6s. Now, right now, we think fish oil or fish or flax, but 100, 200, 1,000 years ago, that was also grass-fed beef, eggs that came from chickens that just ate whatever chickens eat, and nuts, things like that. And more than anything, omega-3 in large part has been stripped from most people's diets. And omega-6s have just skyrocketed. That's a different discussion. But dipping back into my Penn State days, I studied these cows, and we would examine the food as it was being digested. The cows had these holes, like a rubber stopper, where you can reach in and pull out the food and evaluate its level of digestion, which is cool. And I really enjoyed seeing that and being a part of it. But we were feeding them corn, lots of it. And so as we would see the digestion process, and some cows would get bloated, some of them would get sick, we would adjust the type of corn they were being fed. And in order for them to digest this corn, they had to develop this bacteria. And that bacteria is very harmful. If it gets into the cow meat, it becomes rancid, and it'll make you sick. And never once did we talk about cows aren't supposed to eat corn. It reduces the omega-3s in their body. It reduces the omega-3s in the milk they produce. It's just an unnatural way. And so thankfully in 2018, the Farm Bill was passed, essentially decriminalizing hemp. And so started this new industry of CBD.
I have to say I'm a little bit mortified on the whole cow story.
Well, it's very disturbing to see, but a lot of good information could come out of that. The problem is we were asking the wrong question.
No, I have to ask, I was just going to say like the questions, like what you just described to me, I would be like, okay, so the question really is, should we be feeding these cows corn? And what they were probably asking is, how can we feed cows corn and keep this bacteria from growing?
Yeah.
Rather than taking away the source of the poison. So I think it's very fascinating that the bacteria that was the byproduct of corn feeding went into the muscles and meat of the cow that we eat. Did you find any effects later of how it impacted humans? Did you guys study that at all, or was that a question not asked either?
No.
Going down a rabbit trail, Mark.
Yeah, no. Keep in mind, I had no experience. I'm a 22, 23-year-old kid. I didn't know Penn State taught me the right questions to ask, but I didn't know them back then. And the question at the time was, how can we genetically modify this corn so that the cow can more efficiently
right.
And it goes into a whole thing because
sure,
corn is subsidized and it's produced at a cost lower than the actual production cost because of the subsidies. So it's a good choice in terms of economics. It's a horrible choice in terms of health.
But I think the validity in what you're stating here and your experience there was to see how things are manipulated, right?
Yeah.
Not in the realm of health, but in the realm of money. And so the same thing happened with hemp, so it's a valid story.
Yeah. And it is applicable because that manipulation is important. If you want to scale up in a way that it could be part of your daily diet, some manipulation needs to happen. It's just what type of manipulation. And so with hemp, we've all seen these the tinctures, right? This is the most common form, and this is the easiest type to produce. You basically get hemp. I didn't bring any with me. It looks like marijuana, big buds, and you squeeze the oil out. You do some refinement, take out the impurities, and dilute it in another fat. Typically, it's MCT oil, and you have this. And this was sort of the first wave of products. This is the easiest to produce. It's relatively inexpensive from a production standpoint. The prices are still a little bit high, and it seems to get the job done. It's not your typical delivery method, just in terms of medicine or food, but it's what we started with, and it's, in my opinion, it was a good start. And like I said, the hemp oil feeds the endocannabinoid system. Hemp oil itself has many cannabinoids. The most popular one is CBD. There's others, CBG, CBN, different versions of THC that don't necessarily get you high. And of course, a little bit of THC is in there naturally. And so the endocannabinoid system, as I mentioned, is a relatively new discovery.
Can I ask you a quick question? I don't want to interrupt your flow, but
go.
You said the THC is in there naturally. A lot of companies claim, we don't, but a lot of companies claim that their product is 100% THC free. Is that possible?
Well, it depends what your definition is of 100% free is.
Well, so, meaning that it's free of it in the product. And so then they position it that it's safe for everybody to take, even if you get drug tested. Yeah. And, you know, we don't do that simply because I think it's incorrect.
Well, the THC is naturally present, so you have to remove it. And think about it this way. There's a wall to my left. It looks weird. So if I go halfway to the wall, if I take a step halfway to the wall and another step halfway and another step halfway, how many steps do I get to the wall? Well, you'll never get there because it's always another half. THC removal is similar. Now, you can bring it down to a negligible amount, and that's what THC free means. It means negligible. You mentioned in your intro this morning on my way to work, I heard you guys talking about me. It's kind of creepy. And
well, this is because I ate a brownie and I almost fell asleep.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm going to talk about because we use a THC-free ingredient. We'll get to that later because they're really good. And I know I've on occasion ate more than one brownie. You know, so if you have
I'm not driving
two brownies,
with you, Mark.
if you have like 2 brownies or 3 brownies or 4 brownies, I want to feel confident that no matter what, you're still not going to test positive for THC. And the way the brownie's engineered, you won't. Is it absolute zero THC? No. But you need some very special equipment to find it. Okay. And so I'm a stickler for details. That's one of them. So it's possible to bring the THC levels down so far such that you won't test positive. And that's part of the stigma that's attached to CBD. Even if I do a full spectrum tincture, now there's full spectrum and there's broad spectrum. Full spectrum is a full profile of all the cannabinoids, including THC, but at a very low level. The federal limit is 0.3% dry weight. And so basically that means, you know, of this tincture, there's about 1.5 grams of active ingredient in a total of 30 grams. So it's not 0.3% of the total, it's 0.3% of the input. So the actual is even lower than that. And you're likely not going to get high at the legal limit of full spectrum. However, if I just took the lid off this bottle and did a shot of it, I might get high, at least a little bit. And so a broad spectrum, if made correctly, it still has CBD and probably has about 3 or 4 other cannabinoids, measurable amounts of cannabinoids. The THC level should be negligible. And so you're not at risk. If made properly, you're not at risk for testing positive. And so that's full spectrum and broad spectrum. They have them in tinctures, and now we're getting into other products too. And we'll kind of get into that. And so the endocannabinoid system, that's what these cannabinoids feed. And at its core, it's an anti-inflammatory. which is in my opinion, the number one problem with the American diet: inflammation. And I remember years ago, back when I was working with Jamie, I would drive home and put on KDKA and listen to Dr. Weiner, and he preached it every day, and kind of ahead of his time. And he's right. There's all kinds of things that we eat regularly. The big one is sugar, but dairy, processed foods. The list goes on and on. And you guys still preach it, and I can appreciate that sort of thing. But it's also the cannabinoids are also very strong antioxidants, even anti-necrotics. And so they feed and regulate cognition, immune function, your appetite, mood, memory. It's tied to a lot of different other functions in your body. This endocannabinoid system. And it works through these very specific cannabinoid receptors, CB1 and CB2. That kind of gets boring real quick. So our job here at Hemp Synergistics, at our core, we're a biotech company who makes ingredients for the nutraceutical industry. We can refine regular hemp oil to make a broad or a full spectrum. We can make gummies, which are very popular. We can do a lot of different things, but we are looking to solve some core problems. The problem of absorption, we'll get into that, and the problem with efficacy. There's the one thing that hurts an industry or an ingredient the most is if you take the product and you don't see the results. And I hate to hear that. It happens once in a while, and it's usually linked either to a poor quality product or user error, for lack of a better term. And I'll explain what that means. And so in doing a little bit more research for our talk today, one of the things that I think gets overlooked all the time is how to take CBD. I don't care if it's a tincture or I have some here for you. Cooked brownie. We also do the cookie. So
I'll look for my FedEx tracking number when we're done.
The Wellness Center is really selling a lot of them. You're the star of the local market right now.
Awesome. That's what we like to hear.
Yeah, for sure. And so how to take it? Well, one of the things that I saw is it's like 1996. A study was done on rats. God bless these rats. They take one for the team all the time, and they found that if you couple CBD with fat, the absorption rate goes up 4x. And so my first question is why? What does a fat do to increase the absorption of CBD? And this is important. This is the most important part of how to take CBD because it's expensive. And I want the end user to get the most out of it. I don't want them to have to buy a giant dose just to get a little bit in their system. And those doses, as you see, are, they can go over $100 for a 1 month supply. The study was followed up with humans. So these humans, they would take a CBD capsule in the morning, half of them on an empty stomach, and half after eating a breakfast burrito that was prepared by the study conductors. And they found that the increased absorbability is 4 to 14 times that of taking it fasting. And I like the way they did the study because half of them did it fasting and half ate a burrito, and then they swapped. So then the fasters did the burrito, and the burrito people did it fasting, just to make sure that it wasn't any particular body type. And so they averaged it all out. The average was between 4 and 14x, which is a giant number. So that means your 25 milligram dose could turn to a 100 milligram dose. And also worth noting, in this and multiple other studies, the side effects are extremely low, which is another reason why I really like these ingredients, because In order to experience a side effect, you have to take an inordinate amount. And some people do, and usually that's where the side effects come in, or if it was a poorly manufactured product and it was tainted in some way. So again, my question was why? Why does this work? Does everybody need to take it with fats, or is there a hack? Is there a way we can get around that? And so the reason why fats work in increasing the absorbability is it protects against first pass metabolism. And this is a common phenomenon with most medicine. And basically what first pass metabolism means is when you take in a concentrated pharmaceutical or a concentrated nutraceutical, your body knows this. It goes into your stomach and sirens start blaring and it says, uh-oh, we got something new in here, let's destroy it. And the group of enzymes called P450 are released. And the P450 is a large group of enzymes, depending on what's in your gut. The different subtypes of P450 get released. And the most common one with CBD is something called CYP3A4. And these enzymes hunt and find the quote unquote invader and metabolize it or destroy it. Metabolize and destroy meaning the same thing. But when it's coated in a fat or taken with a fat, maybe a little bit beyond my comprehension, but I do know it assists in bypassing this first pass metabolism. And so the result is a 4x all the way up to 14x just by adding fat. And by the way, that the minimum amount right now is 10 grams of fat. They figured out because, like I mentioned, these tinctures they're diluted in MCT oil, but one full tincture is still only 1 gram. So you need more than a tincture can offer, which, by the way, is why the cookies and brownies are so effective. There's the right amount of fat in them.
I will say they were much more effective for me.
Yeah.
I concur.
And you know, traditional brownies, you know, like marijuana brownies, are also effective. The THC is metabolized in the exact same way, and the exact same enzymes are released, and the bioavailability is very, very low unless you combine it with some sort of fat. And you know that's why they do it. And they dilute it in butter and then make it in a brownie, and so you get maximum effect. We did the same thing, but we did it with CBD. So these first pass metabolism enzymes bring the bioavailability. And bioavailability just means the amount of active ingredient that makes it into your system, in layman's terms. That brings the bioavailability down to single digits, you know, like 4-6%. And so when somebody comes up with some new version of CBD, like nano emulsified or some sort of cryo ground or some manipulation of the particle, they'll say, you know, a 50% increase in bioavailability. So instead of getting 4%, you're getting 6, or instead of getting 6, you're getting 9%. This first pass metabolism hack, you can get up to 14. And so there's a big difference. And that would be, I don't know, 140% or 1400%, or, you know, however people calculate those things. But so instead of like a little increase, you get a giant one. And so understanding the fact that these enzymes are what really limit the amount that gets into your system, we can go from there. And you'll appreciate this. These ingredients are in a lot of your products, but there are P450 inhibitors. You ever get a prescription and read the warning and read the instructions and it says, do not take with grapefruit juice? The reason why it says that is that script is has a designed amount of loss. So prescription X, although there's 100 milligrams per serving, the product formulator knows that you're only going to get 15% or whatever percent. And grapefruit juice will increase that number more than they expect. And so that grapefruit juice, the reason why it does that is it's a P450 enzyme inhibitor. Specifically, there's bergamottin or naringin. in that grapefruit juice. And so understanding this, we have a separate group of ingredients called CannaBoost that employs BioPerine, which is black pepper. It's a trademarked ingredient from Sabinza Corporation. They've been around forever. They have such good research. Turmeric and naringin. Those three ingredients make up our CannaBoost. And so, and there's a lot of others. Quercetin is a great one. Quercetin is really good with zinc. The BioPerine increases the absorbability of the turmeric, which increases the absorbability of the CBD. So there's a lot of symbiotic pathways in some of these formulas. But the point is, if you address that P450, you can hack it if you don't want to take it with fats. If I just do this tincture and I have a quercetin or a naringin, or I think you guys have one of the a product maybe called Hemp capsules that incorporates them all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Hemp
yeah,
boost,
it has the BioPerine, the BioDry technology, and then the CannaBoost all in that product.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so we played a heavy hand in helping that product come to market, and so it addresses all those things. Additionally, you can obviously take that Hemp boost with a dollop of peanut butter. It would be a great a great way to consume it. And so that dose, I believe, is 25 milligrams. It'll act like 100 or 150 or more. One of the initiatives we have internally here is to understand the efficacy of this formula and these different phenomenon, and that discovering that sort of thing is a long process. But we started it and want to understand truly what's the real benefit. Because if we can bring it down even further, 15 milligrams or 10 milligrams, the less the better, in my opinion, if you can increase the efficacy, because that means a lower retail price. That means more people get a chance to use it. So, all right, you understand. We'll talk about the P450s and the combination with fat. Both of those are hacks for that first pass metabolism. You mentioned BioDry. This is our keystone product, the BioDry, and we use this in a lot of different products. BioDry is an overarching system, overarching technology, and at a real high level, we combine a root starch with a little bit of fiber and hemp oil. Now, for the Hemp Boost, the overall CBD concentration is 50%, 50, and it comes in a powder form. Now, because hemp pulls a lot of toxins and metals from the ground as it grows, that's one of the reasons why it was so popular through the years. It's a good cleansing agent for the soil. In conjunction with the fact that we use a root starch, we test it for metals. Each batch is tested. We don't do skip lot. It's a practice that a lot of nutraceutical companies do. We don't do skip lots with this. We test it for metals, other toxins, fungus, things like that, to ensure that none of that got pulled. And so for a lot of people, that's a growing concern. Again, a very good thing. And that powder can be used in a capsule form or combined with the CannaBoost for increased absorption. And this technology is new. In fact, we filed for a patent once we finished the product development on it. And the reason why it's so unique is that root starch is an actual polysaccharide. And a polysaccharide has a double helix, kind of like one of those typical DNA structures, like the spiral staircase look. And that polysaccharide is very stout. It's hard to break down. There's only one thing that breaks a polysaccharide apart. And so we were able to impregnate that helix structure with a hemp oil. And so if you put it in your mouth for just a couple seconds, you won't taste it at all. The BioDry technology was used to make the cookies and brownies. That's why they taste so good. You can't taste the hemp at all. because it can't be broken down easily. It goes into your stomach, and that polysaccharide resists stomach acids 100%. There'll be no degradation of the integrity of the cannabinoid at all. There'll be zero loss. And so by the time it gets to your intestines, it's met with a decent amount of enzymes called amylase, and that breaks down carbohydrates. Only then is that hemp oil released into your system. And so one of our thoughts is, and this is another thing that we're trying to get a better understanding of, is when that hemp oil wrapped in a polysaccharide is in your gut, your body doesn't know the hemp's there. And so there's no big release of these P450 enzymes, or at least we theorize. And so it's kind of like a Trojan horse. It enters your GI system, and I don't want to say a shock, but your body's not prepared to metabolize it or destroy it. And so that alone, we believe, will give a much higher bioavailability. Is just you'll have a normal amount of P450, or specifically the CYP3A4s. And in conjunction with the fat, in conjunction with those enzyme inhibitors, we feel as though that this is the way that hemp oil, in large part, is going to be consumed. A more sophisticated delivery. Again, I like the tinctures. They pave the way, but we see the market going away from this style and move more towards these different powders. They're easy to work with, and you can make cooler products. And the cookies, the brownies, we even do it in a drink, Cannabix. You guys also sell this down at the Wellness Center.
I have the dragon fruit. I got a brownie and the dragon fruit drink for on the way home, and I did not drink the drink because I was trying to live. I was like, I am not drinking that. I was like, I don't care how thirsty I am.
Well,
very effective products, I have to say.
This is just my opinion, but I believe, when you take in a vitamin, a mineral, or some sort of nutraceutical, and it has a variety of benefits. The benefit that you're going to receive first is the one you need the most. And so
I need sleep.
Yeah. And so immediately your body's like, all right, finally we have some relief, because, I haven't had any grass-fed beef or, high omega-3 pasture-raised chicken eggs.
Or I work for Jamie.
I remember that.
I just need like a lifetime supply of brownies. No, I'm just kidding. But I mean, it was a big weekend, right? Yeah. It was like a whole NF training. It was a lot of stress, and we just came off of another event. And I just, went down to the Weiner Center just to see all the updates, and it was great. And Joe and Jamie were like, you got to try these. And I was like, okay. So much more effective, because I take CBD every day. But now knowing what I know, I wouldn't get more of a benefit out of it. And I think this can really help people as well in the industry, even as a layperson, to learn this and know that they have something in their house that they're taking, that it can be far more effective if you do a few simple things, like take it with food and make sure you have 10 grams of fat in that meal or more. Yeah. I mean, right there, you just enhanced everybody's endocannabinoid system with that simple information. And then what you're saying about where the industry is moving, and I agree. I think, as toxins become more targeted in our body, and science becomes more targeted in our body with pharmaceuticals and environmental things, we have to get more targeted in the nutraceutical realm. We have to be ahead of the science too, to offset the damage. And hemp is awesome. One of the questions I wanted to ask you, because of how it works in the ground and in the atmosphere and in the environment, I'm not like a hemp researcher like you are, but in theory, I would think that it works that way in our body too, that it can pull things. I mean, what's your opinion, or what do you know about that?
Well, I mean, as an antioxidant, that's a function of antioxidants, free radical scavenging, and cleansing. Well, one of the things that I really liked, first became aware of in my early days with Jamie, was MSM. I love MSM, It's inexpensive and very effective, and it's a very strong antioxidant and free radical scavenger. And I see hemp and the cannabinoids it contains as even more powerful. So yeah, I mean, it's a function of its DNA. That's how the plant operates. And oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes, after a plant is harvested and the active component is extracted, that process continues because that's how the plant or the ingredient was programmed. MSM is a sulfur compound, but they end up working in kind of similar ways.
Mm-hmm.
But that the CBD and the other cannabinoids have a wider scope of capabilities, whereas most other ingredients are kind of narrow in their scope.
Yeah, I was on the Robert Scott Bell show, I think it was last week. I can't remember. One of these Tuesdays that we're on. We're on the first Tuesday of every month. And he sent me an article. He's like, can you break this down? And it was on CBD being used against bacteria.
Yeah.
So it was amazing, right? Because they found that for things like gonorrhea, which have really become antibiotic resistant, or MRSA, and even Lyme, that CBD breaks down the biofilm, which then makes that bacteria more susceptible to treatment that it's already resistant to. So it was kind of interesting that, we haven't looked at this or studied it, because you're right, it's been so demonized that people equate it with hippies and smoking marijuana and everything else that they think, right? But really, it's a nutrient, and it's been grown, and it's incredible for the environment. It's incredible for our bodies. And, Dr. Judy Mikovits, she thinks the endocannabinoid system is kind of like the system in your body that's been most neglected. So she uses it for everything. And, just with understanding her and COVID and the proteins in the brain that are disrupted, taste and smell, all of that, the G protein, right? The G couple receptors. CBD is one of the most impactful things you can do to regain homeostasis of the brain, get back that olfactory, get back hormone balancing, and all the things that we're seeing as side effects of people that have experienced COVID or now have experienced kind of post-jab mechanisms. And even protecting yourself, because people are so worried that there's going to be transmission, and people are like, what are things that I can take? I'm like, CBD, DMG, pretty much anything with just initials. I think take those products, right? MSM, let's just go with alphabet soup and work from there. But it's true. I mean, it is such an easily positioned, easily taken, high compliancy with this product. But, talk to me a little bit about the inferior products out there, Mark. You can get it at a gas station. How can you help these people navigate where to get it, what to look for? Is there a way to read the label, or do you just have to know the good companies?
It's hard. And this goes for any nutraceutical or dietary supplement. This has been my life since college, starting with my time with Jamie, which was 20 years ago. There's always telltale signs. If you're not a label reader, there's telltale signs where they don't have a supplement facts, or the nutrition facts don't look right. These things are standardized, and although the FDA does regulate us, they don't have eyes on every product. You can release a product to market without the FDA touching it. And so, but there are standards. And so if the nutrition facts don't look typical, if there's no ingredient statement, if things aren't placed in the right spot, if the label looks a little crappy, it's important to look good. It represents who you are. You don't go to work, with your hair all messed up and you still your pajamas on. But there's some products out there that didn't comb their hair or change their clothes from yesterday. So if there's any single take home, it's go with your gut feeling when you're looking at a product. If it looks a little shady, just by those nutrition facts, ingredient statement, maybe there's claims on there. One of the things about CBD and all the hemp products is we're not allowed to make any claims. And there's a reason, and it's a long reason, but we're not allowed to make any claims, long story short. And so if you see, treats arthritis, or, just any call out, good for COVID, which it is, and it is good for arthritis. but on a label, you can't talk about that.
Right.
You go to their website, and they have these fantastic claims on there. Those are all red flags. Where some people may say, "Oh, wow, good. I have arthritis. It'll help me." Think twice and understand your dose. Look at the active ingredient. Understand how much is in each serving, how much is in each bottle, and if you can't understand either one of those, pass. Because sometimes companies use hemp seed oil. Hemp seed's cool, has omega-3s, a lot of other good things, has protein, does not have cannabinoids. And so don't get tricked by some sort of hemp gummy that costs $30 when in reality it's worth about $6.
Right.
So I understand those sorts of things as well. Unfortunately, because it is an emerging ingredient, there's a lot of first waivers who just put a product out real quick just to make some quick money, and whatever, they help pave the way. But if you stop and look at those things, I think you'll be able to tell.
Yeah, and I think from the saturation of the industry and everybody jumping on the bandwagon, it kind of lost validity a little bit.
Yeah.
Everybody was like, it doesn't really work, or now we have to get into medical grade for it to be effective, when really we might have just been taking it wrong. We might not have been complementing it with the right things. It's kind of like coming to a natural health consult and that person eats McDonald's and drinks Diet Coke and takes a B vitamin I recommend. I might be like, yeah, it's not going to be as effective with that. Let's try to position it with something else.
Sure.
So I'm glad you're here and kind of taking away that, first, the mysticism of it, that it's going to, be something like marijuana, which it's not. And not that marijuana is bad. I mean, it's actually grown as well and has very good medicinal purposes. But this is a little bit different and can be as beneficial to that endocannabinoid system without the psychotropic effects, right?
Right.
So I really appreciate that.
You're welcome. And real quick, we talk about all these different things that CBD is likely to help. So far, the CBD, or cannabidiol, its long name, is cited in 3,800 studies, 3,800 studies. Most of them done in the last 36 months since its legalization or decriminalization. But to give you perspective, creatine has 61,000. And the amino acid leucine has 84,000. So, and as you know, these studies are very narrowly focused on 65-year-old men who suffer from this disease and, of this persuasion. And that's one study. And, 3,800 sounds like a lot, but it's far lagging. And so as these research studies start to pile up, we learn more and more about its effectiveness and exactly how it can work.
So, question in the chat box, and maybe you can address this. When is THC helpful?
Well, to be honest, my THC experience is purely recreational, but all these cannabinoids work in a somewhat...
You're so honest.
Yeah. All these cannabinoids work in a similar way. So, my personal experience, and I don't study THC at all. Well, beyond, like I said, for myself, but in terms of product development, I know this, like I had a stomach ache just a couple weeks ago, a bad one, and that's rare for me. And one hit off of a vape, it was gone. It was gone. Seriously.
I'm really enjoying your lecture now.
Yeah. Of course, you get the psychotropic effect of it, which is not necessarily what's desired. But you could do the same thing with hemp bud, and if you smoke hemp bud, you have that same feeling. This go over your body, but your head stays above water. You can still think and clear and articulate things, whereas THC clouds your top, head to toe.
Right.
And so as an end user with THC, it feels a lot like CBD plus the immediate alleviation of my stomach pain specifically. But other than that, I can't say much about THC and exactly how it works, except for all these cannabinoids follow a similar pathway. Some are more specific in their end result than others, but they're all a version of an anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and anti-necrotic.
Yeah. I think from what I know and kind of studied too, and again, I don't know a ton about THC. It's not the world that we're in. We're more confined to like
Right.
stay over here in your CBDs,
Yeah.
But it's more symptom related for people that have bigger chronic issues, which is why it's more medically medicinal, right?
Yeah.
And it's also an amplifier for the other CB pathways. And CB2, like CB1 and CB2, CB2 is more immune system. So it's going to hit that pathway a little bit harder. And therefore, they use it for bigger things that are impacting the immune system, such as cancers. So I look at THC as more of like symptom-related amplifier of other pathways and use strategically when you need it for bigger, badder things. Not that CBD can't help. It just takes longer and takes more. So it's more of like a time factor, right? So you'll hear people that have been diagnosed with something very, maybe, might have not such a great ending, right? It might end in like death, so that prognosis might be less. And that's when you'd probably go for that THC pathway quicker. So, but overall, I mean, taking a daily CBD product to feed that endocannabinoid system, help with pain and inflammation, help with stress, help with all those root causes of disease, that's your first step, right? Foundational nutrition, hydration, movement, sleep, elimination, good emotional wellness, spiritual wellness, CBD on top, and then all the other nutraceuticals. It's kind of like a base because your endocannabinoid system, I always tell people, is like a tree. It talks to everything. And if it's hungry, you're getting the wrong message. If it can't communicate, it can't get the message somewhere, you're getting the wrong immune response. You're getting the wrong regulation of pain, wrong regulation of temperature. And all those things are vital with keeping us alive. I mean, look at temperature, right? What happens when you get sick? You get a fever, and what happened with COVID? You got dysregulation of temperature changes. People weren't getting fevers. It was a really strange thing, although the viral infection needed a fever in order to kill it. So that's where CBD was like positioned really well, not to cure, treat, or diagnose, but to modulate the immune system, as the studies have proven.
This product was formulated not by me. It was a doctor, Dr. Babak Baban, and he's a research scientist. He just was published. It's cited by the World Health Organization. They did a study on CBD and its effects against cytokine storms.
Wow.
And it was very convincing. It wasn't done on humans. It was a preliminary study. But again, these things need to be understood in greater detail. And it kind of goes back to this system exists in our body, but we haven't been feeding it for the better part of 100 years.
Right.
And so why would there be a system in your body that doesn't get fed? Well, it's because the foods that we typically eat aren't rich in the nutrients, specifically omega-3, that normally feed it. And if you want to bypass that, that's where CBD comes in. And I call it vitamin hemp in the office here. And I think it's a one-a-day. And I think you're going to find it in one-a-days eventually, sooner than later, with ingredients like our BioDrive or processes like our BioDrive.
Yeah, that's a great idea. So, and I love taking it back to food as medicine. It always has been, always will be. We kind of took this big deviation around it, and now we're back to food as medicine. So, well, Mark, thank you.
Thank you. That went quick.
I know. Well, I have for practitioners that are watching, can they connect with you to perhaps get these products into their stores and facilities?
Sure. Our parent company, as you know, we have multiple brands, but our parent company is Hemp Synergistics. Oh, there you go, Hemp Synergistics. You go to hempsynergistics.com and do the contact us, and we certainly can help you get into the brownies, the cookies, a drink, and a whole bunch of other things.
Okay, and obviously you need my address to send me. I'll make sure you get that later. And then for anybody that's interested in these products, they are at the Weiner Wellness Center right now. So you can stop in, you can order them, to have them throw a few of the cookies and brownies in your shipment this time. I promise you won't regret it. It was a very effective product for me. And I still have the drink downstairs. I'm going to go
Right
get it
on. Right
after
on.
this
Good.
so I don't fall asleep because I need sleep.
Take some fat with it.
Obviously. I'll drink it tonight.
Yeah.
So any questions for Mark, feel free to keep putting them in the chat. He can always come back. There's one other question. Is there a terpene profile people should look for in hemp products?
Again, there's even less research on terpenes. You know, I hesitate in recommending anything that I don't have at least a pretty good understanding of. And terpenes are sort of the spice and the flavor of a cannabinoid. And I'm not comfortable enough to recommend specific terpenes. I know they occur naturally, and they need to be incorporated more because they're pretty much sifted through and thrown away or sold separately. But the true effects of terpenes and the combination of them isn't widely understood, and certainly not widely understood by me. So I unfortunately don't have a recommendation, but I think in the future these support ingredients or support components of the hemp oil will be accentuated in some way. I just don't have any good info for you right now.
Well, awesome. Well, this was all good info, you know.
Right on. Right on.
Thanks
Good.
so much for being here. Thanks for all you do in the industry. You're just such a great advocate for health, and we're just glad you're part of the team. So thank you.
Same. Glad to be part of the team and Nutritional Frontiers and Jamie specifically. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Mark, thanks again. And guys, stay tuned. Our next lecture is coming up. And Mark, you're free to go back in the chat and answer any questions.
Will do. Thank you.
All right.